Yeah, start it. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Sticknot?
Here.
Curtis?
Yes.
Raymond?
Present.
McGinnis?
Here. Motion to approve the agenda. So moved. Moved by Martin Sticknot. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Is there any public comment?
Hi, my name is Jennifer Martin. I'm a lawyer in Kepler Room, which is a law firm based in Edwardsville, but we have an office in Springfield, and we represent First Financial Bank. And we're here to talk about the ordinance. This came up in front of your committee, I think early May or something. And first I want to apologize. We should have been here. We just didn't realize that you guys got on your schedule pretty quickly, and we weren't sure what the procedure was. And I understand that there were some concerns raised at that meeting, so we wanted to make sure we got back in here and explained, gave you some explanation about the ordinance, and also answered any questions you had. I brought copies of it, just in case you don't have any. Feel free to, you can do with those what you want. The property that we're talking about here is the old Howard Industries property. It's in Milford, and this map shows the property here. This is Highway 1. Property is right here. It's on the east side of Highway 1. And those of you who are here probably know way more about this than I do, but it's my understanding that the first manufacturing building of this property was the Spring Factory, which was built in the 1950s. And then they started out over on this side of Highway 1 and then moved over here. And then Howard Industries purchased this property in the early 1950s and began manufacturing buildings on here. There was a small operation down here, a farm implement business, and then it was later a restaurant and a gas station. There were tanks there. Howard Industries had a manufacturing operation where they manufactured and assembled motors and ancillary parts. And we also know from Illinois EPA records that they generated hazardous waste, and they also stored them on the property. They were regulated as a hazardous waste generator and storage facility. They operated here from about 1960 to 1995. In November of 1995, they shut down their operation, and in February of 1996, they declared bankruptcy. And since that time, no one has operated on this property. The property was the subject of several foreclosure proceedings by different banks, and ultimately it was acquired by a bank, I think out of Danville, that closed, and then our client, First Financial Bank, ended up with the property with the acquired assets of that bank, of the closed bank. They obtained title in 2009, and they hired Patriot Engineering. Mr. Ward is here from Patriot, and he's going to give you a little bit more information too. But they hired Patriot Engineering to come in and do some environmental investigation on the property. It's important to note, and I know this based on the comments at the last meeting, First Financial Bank never operated this property. They acquired it in 2009. They did not do any operations here, and therefore, under Illinois law, under the Illinois Environmental Protection Act, they are not a responsible party, and the state of Illinois could never come after them to clean up the property. The Illinois Environmental Protection Act explains that responsible parties are those parties who caused or contributed to a release of regulated substances at a property. First Financial Bank never did anything like that. So they are not responsible for the contamination of this property under Illinois law, but they still thought that this property presented some promise and was something that could be cleaned up and put back into use. And so they hired Patriot Engineering to begin investigating environmental conditions with the goal of putting this property back into use, transferring it, putting it back into use. And First Financial Bank, for those of you who don't know, is a regional bank. They're a very strong supporter of local communities. This is the type of project that appeals to them because they support economic growth in smaller communities. And in 2013, they enrolled the site in the Illinois Site Remediation Program, which is the Illinois Voluntary Cleanup Program. And since that time, they have spent, or since 2009 when they initially acquired the property, First Financial Bank has spent over $1 million investigating and cleaning up this property. And I know that from talking to people, that there was some idea that they had grant funds or government funds or something that had assisted in the cleanup. There has been none of that. There is no grant funding available for this type of of work. This has all been money that they've spent on their own. Mr. Ward, if you don't mind, can I have him explain just a little bit about what work they've done with the property?
Yeah, good morning. I'm Jeff Ward with Patriot Engineering. I took over as project manager for the site back in 2012, late 2012. We've installed over 200 sample locations throughout the site, groundwater monitoring locations throughout the site. We've never found any off-site contamination with the exception of some low level of metals contamination on this magnesium and chromium on this side of the highway. None of the trichloroethylene, the heavy contamination that's located in this vicinity has ever showed up in any of these wells over here. So there's no continuing source of contamination. And like Jennifer was saying, only the EPA rules allow for ordinance to be used where remediation of groundwater is feasible. We've done some preliminary estimates, and their costs range from 10 to 15 million to effectively clean up the site to make it back to like a cornfield again with the existing ordinances in place that with the village and with the state that prohibit groundwater use in those areas where municipal water is available. This is kind of another layer on top of that. So really what we're asking is zero impact to what the current conditions are as far as allowable potable water use in the area. Of course, the diagram shows the county ordinance area here. There's a city ordinance area that has already been put in place that covers the property itself and small areas of the property outside the county areas. One of the other things that we wanted to bring up, and we'll just move quickly along here, is the IDOT issues with this area, this northwest corner of the property, where there may be, it seems, after talking with the folks at IDOT, that they may not do this. What this would involve would be no excavation, really. They would be adding material in this area and pavements to expand the turnoff. We do have samples in this exact location, and those samples are all clean. So there's zero possibility of any impact. Our nearest contaminated soil sample is 100 feet away, and it's likely contaminated, and it's 100 feet away from where they're going to do any activity. So we don't see any conflict with the IDOT proposal, and neither do the folks at IDOT. And I was at that meeting to speak with Ted Foltz, and he's in agreement that there's no conflict issues with the contaminants at this site and with proposed activities that IDOT's going to do.
And just to something, in the program that Illinois, or that the site is in, this Illinois Voluntary Cleanup Program, site remediation program, you can use an ordinance. If you have existing groundwater contamination, what you do is you project out, you use modeling that Illinois EPA has in this regulation, and you project out the maximum possible extent of any contamination. And then you can put ordinances in place over those areas. And what the ordinances do, you have it in front of you, it just prohibits use of potable water in those areas. So you can't drill, you can't put a potable well into the ordinance areas. We talked with the city of Milford. The city water line extends up to here in Milford, and so therefore this property, which is Carolyn Looker's property, is on city water. The other property, Donna Crow's property, is also on city water. And we have spoken with Mrs. Looker, Mrs. Crow, and we've also spoken with the Glovers, who own, I think it's this portion of this parcel over here. They have advised us that we can indicate to you that they have no objection to the ordinance being passed by the county. And all it would do is just for strict parties from putting a potable well. The goal of the cleanup is to get what's called a no further remediation letter from Illinois EPA. They're in this program. There's an Illinois EPA project manager who's overseeing all the work that's done at the site. There's a set of reports that they have to submit to him. He approves them or doesn't approve them, rejects them. And at the end of this process, after we have if we can get the ordinances in place, Illinois EPA will issue a no further remediation letter, which will be, it'll be recorded with the property. And what the letter will say, it by its terms, it says that the letter is prima facie evidence that the site does not constitute a threat to human health and the environment and does not require further remediation. And the importance of the no further remediation letter is that it enables the property to be transferred. Without the letter, this property will not be transferred. It's just going to sit here like this. But the NFR letter allows a party to acquire the property with some security, that they're not going to be pursued by Illinois EPA and not be required to clean it up. So that's the importance of the letter. And we have to have the county ordinance. We have the city ordinance in place already. It covers this area, as Mr. Ward explained. But we have to have the county ordinance in place before we can get the letter. And the Illinois EPA has approved ordinances in Iroquois County. They've actually approved hundreds of ordinances in the state, but they've approved ordinances in 4 municipalities in Iroquois County: Ashcombe, Buckley, Chavant, Chavant, and then 2 ordinances in Watsika. There is also, I want to point out, there's an existing county ordinance in place in Iroquois County that says, and I'm reading from it, in those locations where a public water supply is reasonably available, that supply should be the sole source of water for drinking and culinary purposes. It's also a potable water restriction. And because there is water available along Highway 1 up to here, there is water reasonably available in this area. Illinois EPA wants your ordinance, the ordinance to be on their form, which is why we can't submit the county ordinance to just ask them to approve that. But they're really basically doing the same thing that the existing county ordinance already does. And so just just to sum up here, we are going to go to the county board on Tuesday, give them the same information. I want to make sure that nobody has any questions. I know there were concerns at your last meeting about this. I want to make sure that we've answered or addressed any of those concerns. Are there any questions or anything? Yes.
Just specify again what property is affected by this ordinance that we might pass.
I'm sorry, I should explain that. It's the property that's in this yellow area right here. And I think that this is Carolyn Looker's property. I think this is the Glovers. And then Mrs. Crow owns this property right here. She also owns property that's covered by the city ordinance already in place, and she has access to city water on her property. This, I can't remember, is this a Glovers? That may be Carolyn Glover too, I'm not sure.
This was Crow's property, Looker's property.
Okay. Yeah. Right. This property up here is also covered by the ordinance that's owned by First Financial Bank, so in connection with this. So it's really, the only outside property owners are the Glovers, Mrs. Looker, and Mrs. Crow, and we've spoken with all of them.
And the railroad is...
The railroad, and yes, the railroad is aware of this. They have a copy of the ordinance, and we are in discussions with them.
One other thing I should have mentioned is that this ordinance area is based on very conservative models. This is the worst case that would be expected for these contaminants to travel over time before they degrade and are attenuated down to acceptable levels. One thing to note is that we've been monitoring these wells for all those years and haven't seen any of those contaminants. So
we do have wells in place.
Yeah, we have actual data to show that the contaminants have not crossed the highway. And so the yellow area represents a worst case.
So the different dots, I see red dots and the blue triangles. What's the
red
legend?
would be soil samples only.
Okay.
And the blue would be soil and groundwater.
Okay.
Actually, there are monitoring wells at the blue dots. Red dots oftentimes got both soil and water samples, but wells were not installed there. So we're just at the blue triangle.
And for the soil samples, how deep do you bore down? Is it just surface or?
Well, that's a good question. We have bored generally fairly shallow within the contaminated areas, so as not to, poke through that and release contaminants to a depth that's not been contaminated. But outside of those areas, we have gone to depths of up to 50 feet.
Okay.
And still found nothing. they were degreasing solvents. Trichloroethylene was the big thing that is giving us grief over here on the east side of the property. I've got a map that shows what that looks like. You want to see this area here that's colored. That's our hot spot. That's the area that is modeled, to extend that 500 feet in a worst case scenario.
And I assumed in the past they had spilled that material.
That's what's unknown. Whether it was by accident or part of their operation or just poor housekeeping, it's just...
Given the dates of when these operations were in place, I mean, they predated some of the environmental laws, and, you find some sites that are historic sites like this, you find some kind of bad practices with solvents and...
This is a map that we put together to show where the wells are in the area. And so these large triangles represent wells, with the village wells down here south of Sugar Creek. And the little blue line shows the groundwater flow direction off the site. And so these wells out here are the ones that we were required to identify and put on the map. And our ordinance area, our models show that, obviously it would only go about right here. So it's far away from any of the existing wells.
Those wells are private individual
Yes.
wells?
Yes.
I do want to mention too, we met with Mr. Ivan and with Mr. Devine last month, and for over an hour talking through, gave him all the information we're giving you. I think we addressed Mr. Ivan's concerns and gave him, and we followed up with some information for him. So,
You said on the west side there was some possible contaminants. What were those again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, there was some metal, manganese, and chromium contamination, light contamination found in these wells along the highway. The curious thing is all of our soil samples from the site found no metal contamination exceeding the Tier 1, the most stringent limits. So it's kind of an unknown as to where that might be coming from. One hypothesis is it's along a highway, and you get salt and runoff from vehicle traffic that could account for some of this. It is part of our model, though. It is part of our program to protect against that contamination as well. This model covers that light contamination, metal contamination in those wells, as well as solvent contamination here.
So you didn't go any farther west than right along the highway?
Well, we went as far as basically why there are so many dots on here is it's a step-out program whereby you measure for contamination. If you find it, you step out some feet until you don't find it. And so we lots of locations around in here, there is none of the TCE contamination as well, even on the property. But one of the things EPA wanted to answer is anything moving off-site? And is anything moving off-site at depth? So we've got shallow and deep wells along the west side of the highway that all show clean for this fall.
But the wells on the west side of the highway showed some metals.
Right.
You have no way of knowing whether that moved in from the old airport or from the Howard Industries.
Exactly. Yes. Or it could be, salt and runoff from the highway from the years of truck traffic, vehicle traffic. There's a lot of metals that come out of vehicles, leaking oil and things like that could account for that. The levels are fairly low, and they're not really consistent with what we found as far as in the soil on the site. There were metals in the soils, but they're all below the EPA limits. So that's an unknown. But again, the model that we constructed considers the metals as well, even though there is some low level contamination.
I just brought up the old airport because, way back and before we knew what we know now, you take used oil and dump it on the driveway and keep the dust down.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you.
thank you. I'm going to give you, I should have put my name on this board. If you have any questions, we're going to be in front of the county board on Tuesday, but if there are any questions, please don't hesitate to call or email or whatever. We'll get you whatever information you find.
Okay.
And we appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right,
very
No,
much.
thank you for coming, because that was
Clears up a lot of questions.
yeah. So Milford already passed their ordinance.
They did, and I have a copy of that too. Would that be helpful?
No, I mean, Milford supports it, that's the big thing.
Okay.
Well, Milford and the property owners, that was our big concern.
Right.
Moving on, planning and zoning office report.
June for building permit fees for the month of June for fiscal year 17, $2,784. June total receipts, $3,309. We had several variance and rezoning fees that came in besides the building permits. As you can look, total building permit fees are down from 16 to 17, and obviously total receipts are also down. There was only 6 permits issued in June. So building inspections for June was 9. We're going to have, at this point, we're going to have 2 applicants for zoning board of appeals for the end of August. Brian and Ann Johnson want a conditional use and a variance for a 5 to 9 dog kennel license. They are private owners of a house outside of Danforth, and they have 7 dogs. It's not going to be a business, but they still want to have 7 dogs, up to 9. So by ordinance, they're required to have a kennel license, and it's basically their home pet. But the way the ordinance reads, they're still required to get a kennel license, even though they're not in any desire to breed or anything like that. It's private ownership. And then also Eric and Angela Yates. Eric and Angela bought some ground from his father, Richard Yates, in Iroquois Township, and their plan is to build a house and a horse barn eventually from A1 to RH1, and that's the process is moving forward. It's basically, you know where Richard Yates lives out off the Iroquois River. It's all junk and pasture, and he's got enough high ground, just enough high ground there to build a house above floodplain, so above base flood. So it should be fairly routine, but that's up to the committee, the zoning board of appeals, and the county board to decide on that. And your claims are there, building permit list is there. That's all I have right now. So, any questions for me at this time?
Questions, Bob? All right, thank you. All right, moving on. Got a variance application of Patrick and Donna McCann.
And I apologize for Patrick. His wife is deceased now, so she shouldn't have been on there. But she's still on listed as a property. He hasn't moved her, got her name off the deed, so.
They would like to build FBI building, subdivision closer to the road than 50 feet in the required setback. The zoning board of appeals
Approve it unanimously.
approved it. Okay, would you like to say anything, sir? It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, so he's got toys and equipment. He takes care of antique cars, that rebuilds them, and he needs a place to put them so they're not sitting outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went by, I mean, you're only a couple miles from me, I'm right there on the high school road, and remodeling an old house right there by Christmas Club. And I drive back there all the time, so it's not a big deal. It'll help keep from cutting trees down and what have you. I went out there one day, I didn't see it, but I've been gone just to look at it, so.
Any further input? Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Chad McGinnis. Is there a second? Second by Ernie Curtis. Call the roll, please.
Pickup,
Yes.
Curtis,
Yeah.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Freeman.
Yes. Okay, motion carries.
Pat, the county board meeting is Tuesday, on the 11th at 9 o'clock. Zoning is usually toward the end of the county board meeting, so you don't have to show up at 9. If you're not required to show up for the county board, if you want to, you can answer any questions to the full board. And so if you're here by 10 o'clock, you should be fine for the committee meeting, the committee report, and that's when that'll be addressed. Okay? 11 o'clock. No, the 11th of June, next Tuesday. They meet at 9, but zoning is later in the meeting, so you don't have to be here right at 9 unless you want to come and enjoy the show.
It's ready to be entertaining.
So, pretty well put. We got coffee. So, all right, you're free to go now, so thanks.
Next on the agenda is review of the general ordinance. I have been gone the last several meetings, as everybody knows, so I'm a little behind on this. So, if anything's been accomplished, is there any discussion on it?
A couple meetings ago, we discussed it in detail. I think Chad suggested the things, and we made a few notes.
Yeah, I haven't, I've got to get everyone, I haven't printed off any copies yet, but most of the things with the solar was just correcting stuff. But we still, I've made contact with a person from the Department of Energy that's
This
pro
is
solar.
subdivision.
Oh, subdivision.
Yeah.
Oh, I saw him looking at the solar ordinance.
Oh, we're not on solar?
No,
And
we're
he said solar, so I thought we were on solar.
Oh, okay, yeah, we're on subdivision.
Well,
We're
state those
speaking of
comments
the general
for later.
ordinance, general ordinance, yeah.
No.
They're not yet, general ordinance,
Okay.
sorry about that.
I mean, obviously, Chad had some concerns about the general ordinance, about what's grandfathered in, and how some things are read as far as rebuilding if something's destroyed, or how long you can wait to rebuild, that kind of thing. So that's basically where we were at on the general ordinance type thing.
Yeah. And I should have made copies. I've made some notes just going through. It'd probably be better if I made copies for everyone. But for section 2.2, which would be, I didn't have page numbers, I just wrote section numbers.
2.2 use restrictions? Page 3?
Yes, page 3. Oh, I did page 3. Let me reread it here. What it reads is, conditional uses and their accessory uses are permitted in districts as specified, but only according to the conditional use procedure. Also, any development within 500 feet of the existing or proposed right-of-ways of expressways, freeways, interstates, and controlled access traffic ways, and within 1,500 feet of their existing or proposed interchange or turning right-of-ways shall be deemed to be conditional uses. The note I have, any development within 500 feet of a right-of-way is conditional use. And the question is, does this mean anything built close to a road is automatically a conditional use? If so, I said this is an excessive restriction and goes beyond the setbacks of the ordinance. So I was kind of just questioning the wording, because it says anything within 500 feet of an existing or proposed right-of-way is a conditional use. Is that, I mean, most people build houses along roads, along highways. Is that what it
I don't know what the original intent was meant by right-of-ways, if it was meant more like the interstate
It just,
interchanges or...
yeah, I mean, because, and I didn't know if that was a state law, that it has to be that way. But, we build houses along right-of-ways all the time. And so what I know is it just seemed there might be a conflict that we need to think about or chew on or mark. So I'm not looking for answers. I just things I noticed. Same section 2.2, page 7, or paragraph 7, but it's on page 4. Temporary dwellings. It reads, temporary dwellings, no structure shall be used for a dwelling purpose that does not comply with the requirements of this ordinance. No garage or accessory building, mobile home, basement, partial, or temporary structure, whether fixed or portable, shall be erected or moved onto a lot and used for any dwelling purpose unless authorized by the issuance of a temporary permit by the zoning enforcement officer and satisfying all the conditions thereof. However, temporary usage of lots of record, either with or without dwellings, may be permitted for wheeled vehicles designed for sleeping or camping by temporary permit. Travel trailers must be moved after 180 days. And let me read I put on there, and I think I might just answer my question. Campers must have temporary permits. The note was, I think we need to create a time frame that is allowed without a permit. Basically, if someone has visitors and lets them use their RV or camper, they need a permit. And I'm not sure if I read that correct. Temporary usage. It's the temporary usage of lots of record, either with or without dwellings, may be permitted for wheeled vehicles designed for sleeping or camping by temporary permit. That's where that comes from. Basically, someone has family over, or they show up in a motorhome, they need to have a permit. The way I'm reading that ordinance.
And I need some of what the committee feels is because we're having an increasing issue across the county. Everybody has a fifth wheel. A lot of people, I should say, everybody fifth wheel camper, and obviously a lot of people just park them next to their farm building until they go camping or to the fair or whatever. And that's fine. So that's not clearly stated there if it has to be moved. And then now I'm getting complaints. There's people there's a lot in the Rock right now that's got 3 RV fifth wheels sitting on there, and the neighbors are complaining that they're there and they're there for the whole summer. And 'cause there's no house on the structure, on the lot, I should say. So clarification, and Jim says, well, just send them a letter saying they have to move it within 180 days. Well, that's the summer.
Yeah. And the whole permit thing, technically they're supposed to have a permit.
And is there a density issue? Can you have 3, those aren't on a residential WF2 lot in Laurent? There's no clarification there either. And obviously, I know it came up years ago. Some people were having RVs that they were temporarily living in until they went back to Arizona or Florida. What do you want to do? So I just, something to think about how you want to handle those situations. They're getting more and more prevalent. I'm going to send a letter to these people that's got to be moved within 180 days. That's okay. They'll sit there the rest of the summer.
Yeah.
And when the summer's over, when it gets cold, they'll be moving them.
But
out of necessity, and and then it doesn't help the neighbors.
But it also says they're supposed to have a temporary permit from you, and is that the intent? I could see possibly for the waterfront, where they're coming down, leaving it there, but if someone, I know exactly, and so it's written in there, but there's no way to police it. So that's just something to chew on. What we need to change, and stop me whenever, because I went through like you asked and was looking for stuff.
I've been so busy I haven't had time to.
It could be better that I photocopy all this and give it so that you can go back, or I can just point out things real fast.
Just whatever the committee would like to do.
Yeah.
It's easier to just have
Whatever you guys
have it in
want.
front of you.
Didn't we go through this a couple of years ago, and somebody went out and moved it 50 foot, said we moved it,
To a new parcel
and
that.
then moved it another 50 foot, said we moved it?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So and plus, there's some people that winterize their campers and leave them, and they do it because they don't have enough storage. They leave them sit outside all winter, and it never moves. So where's the? The way it's written, it just gives people who are mad at their neighbors something to complain about.
Yeah, and I know the one you talked about in the Rock, and I know probably the people that might be having an issue, and they complain on everything. So.
But obviously we're not fixing it today. Just
No.
something to think about, because
We have to make his job
Where would they get the permits at, from you?
Well, for me, if you're gonna, if we're gonna require that, I mean, the way it's read, it's required, but I've never seen one ever issued. I don't remember seeing anything in the file that Gloria ever issued one. And so, if past practice says, you know, not being enforced the way it's specifically read, but it would be impossible to police. I can't, it's a big county.
Yeah, it's not worth.
I mean, I don't have time to, I mean, I do get around quite a bit, but not that much.
We're just talking about the country, we're not talking about in town.
No, in town, we don't have any jurisdiction.
County jurisdiction area. So
And then we do have licensed campgrounds out in the county.
Right.
Without the county, and they renew their license every year, and that's fine. And they monitor their own, who comes in and out. So, something to think about.
I think the best thing to do is get the photos of that, everybody keep doing their research, I'll try to play catch up, get caught up on it. Next month, we'll try to make a big leap forward on this. It's been on the agenda too long, so we'll try to make a big leap on it and get it done.
I'll copy what I've got, and I'm only,
Everybody else bring what they have back to it.
Yeah.
Everybody keep working on it.
In the short term, our biggest concern is the solar farm ordinance.
Yes.
We really
Yeah.
Should move on to that.
So there's no objection. Any further discussion on this? We'll move on to discussion on solar ordinance. Chad, you taking lead on the solar ordinance?
I forgot to make copies of the corrections that you asked, but I know the Farm Bureau, the Iroquois Farm Bureau is having a meeting on July 10th for the interested parties, farmers and whatever, the solar companies have approached. And I believe they're going to have an attorney there to help educate the farmers on advising.
It starts at 6.
Yeah.
Where is this?
Farm Bureau
Farm Bureau
building.
Gilman, okay.
Yeah, I got it on my phone.
At 6 o'clock, you say?
Yeah.
I'll read it here.
PM, I assume.
Many Farm Bureau members have received solicitations from solar companies as well as wind energy companies. The lease agreements that accompany these solicitations represent long-term obligations for landowners and tenants, usually at least 20 years. With any other utility project, members should perform a comprehensive analysis, blah, blah, blah. The host informational meeting on solar and wind projects on Monday, July 10th at 6 at the Farm Bureau building in Gilman. Attorneys Laura Harmon and Garrett Talgot will present information relating to lease and easement considerations. So, and as you all know, and Dan's dealt with it more up in his area when they put the transmission lines in after the fact. Farmers didn't realize that their easement, the SA sign included their whole tract of ground, didn't restrict them to the closer to the right of way. And that's why you see transmission lines 40 foot and stuff off the road and actually into the farm. So they signed it. So
A lot of angry people.
You sign that, you're signing your whole farm over to them.
so that's I think that's what this is headed toward, what you need to be aware of in the lease and stuff. So
A lot of this, I pulled off of the Kankakee Counties thing. The biggest thing, like Dan Persley mentioned, he's not in favor of solar because he doesn't like the federal subsidies and all that. And what
like motor oil either.
but what I said to him is, solar's coming. We need to have something, and so give me feedback on how restrictive to make it. I haven't gotten feedback. A question was asked, why 75 acres? Well, I just pulled that because our zoning ordinance basically requires people to own 75 acres to build a house. So if our ordinance requires that, then is that the intent of the board to develop solar? They need to have 75 acres.
and then if it's A2, it's only 35.
Yeah.
And you're allowed,
So- so-
didn't you originally, it was either A1 or A2?
Yeah,
you're allowing it? So
yeah.
now really you're 35.
But we also need to, and this is solar farm, so utility scale, the 5 acre ones, the 5 to 7 per Prairie Power has a few of those, and Hoosier Energy, the one over in Newton County that I drove by, it was built on an old site. I mean, they brought to life an old site. So I'm going to incorporate the utility scale definition in, because we have a lot of sites, take Howard Industries. We have a garbage dump. That's attractive too because of the height, some areas. So what I really need from this committee is how loose or how restrictive do we want the ordinance to be. Kankakee County has like a 20-acre things for farms and stuff on their past ordinance. Winnebago Township, or Winnebago County, their ordinance basically says solar farms are conditional, and to be built, they need to comply with federal standards and national electric standards, and they encourage it. I mean, it's very loose. It's basically you say, come build, okay? So that's the big question that this committee needs to guide me on, is how strict, how loose. Do we want to incorporate industrial sites? I think we should, because especially if they're not being used. A couple things I've looked up as far as value. An example up in Rockford Township, for the solar farm that's up there, the taxes that are collected per megawatt, it's expected to generate $10,830 in real estate property tax. That will then go back to everything from their evaluation. So that's, the facility up there is on 5 acres. It's a 3 megawatt. So they're basically getting $33,000 in real estate tax on a 5-acre parcel. Do we have any 5-acre parcels? I mean, is that a lot of money?
Oh, not more than
what most?
Usually on a 5-acre parcel, you're going to have a farmhouse or a newer house, and you're looking at anywhere from 2,000 to 10, depending on.
Exactly. And if we have an old industrial site or business site that's, no longer being used, putting this on there brings it back to life. So we need to think in those terms of strategy. Solar companies are, and I see that there's a letter here from National Land Realty. So, the realtor companies are getting into the whole trying to find sites and what have you. And I can print off the Rockford Township stuff, and so you can have it and give it to you. There's in Streeter, I'm still trying to find the document, but there's a solar farm that went up over in LaSalle County, and it's expected to generate $11,000 in taxes, small scale.
To the county.
Property tax.
Okay, then.
So however it's divided up between every entity.
And that's for the solar panels.
Yep.
But then is there any taxes for the farmer's land? Does he continue to pay his
They
tax?
will, what happens is, like on the Rockford Township and Winnebago's policy, only the portion of land that is used for solar will be taxed for solar. Then they will tax out, just like on farmhouses, farmland, what the farmland value. The farmland stays the same, but the footprint of the solar panel section is all taxed at the higher rate.
Because you're going to have to remove, just like with the wind towers, but on a much smaller scale, you're going to have to remove the footprint of the solar farm away out of the farmer's assessment, because it's not under production anymore.
He still owns land.
Still owns land,
He
it's
owns
not under
land.
production anymore, so there would be you would reassess it in a different format. Now, what that valuation system is, yet to be determined in this county, whether, but it wouldn't be, and per acre wise, the assessment for the footprint would be more per acre than the farmland would be.
I do have the Streeter, and I have another just to kind of help you. In Chicago, there's a 10 megawatt solar farm. It's on 41 acres of land, and it's going to produce electricity for 1,500 homes, and basically, you know, the tax rate's still going to be around 10,000, between 10 and 11,000 per megawatt. Streeter in LaSalle County has a 20 megawatt solar farm. The name of it is called Grand Ridge Solar Farm, so you can, that's what I want to look up and maybe go see. The property has an assessed value of $3,162,000. The tax rate of 6.7%. It generates $213,000 in taxes, or $10,000 per megawatt. So, and then I'll give you a better number for the Rockford. So, yeah, Rockford is a 3 megawatt facility, so 33,000, actually 34,000 in real estate taxes will be generated. And we have some, you know, schools, like, they could tap into the old landfill by Donovan or Milford, I mean, because of the height. I mean, in some areas, Target, the Department of Energy lists garbage dumps, landfills, because of their height and their openness as a targeted spot to dual use. Obviously, there has to be agreements with the owner, but
Potentially it's a secondary source of
secondary
power.
source. And then what happened, there is one in Indiana where they built on a landfill, and because they have the solar generating stuff there, they now are generating electricity from the methane gas too, because the transmission is there. It just justifies. So a lot of these projects are 5 acre, 7 acre in size. The 20 megawatt is probably, it doesn't give it, but I'm just looking, calculate numbers in my head of how many megawatts per acre. It's probably right around 20 to 30 acres that they took over. The general rule that, and I'm looking at the notes, the general rule that I've seen is 5 acres per megawatt. But that's the median requirement. So, but some get a little bit more, because that 3 megawatt facility is that they're going to build in Rockford is expected to sit on 8 acres. So
It would depend on the cell.
So you're back to where you guys develop an ordinance and put your guidelines to it, get a draft together, you're going to have to go through the zoning board of appeals, zoning committee, and full county board, have public hearings. So before you can then put in legal notices in the paper for your public hearings with the zoning board of appeals, you have to have a draft together, and you have to agree on what you want to put forward. Obviously, it can change after the public hearings to some degree. If it's a major change, obviously you start the process over. So the notice has to be in every paper in circulation in the county 15 days prior to the hearing. So it's to the point, it's time consuming, but you can't schedule anything until you have something you want to submit for public hearing. And that's the bottom line. And you guys in the committee have to put it together and sign off on it and say we're going to propose this to the zoning board of appeals for approval to have an ordinance in place for solar farms for the county. And so either when you put your stamp on the final draft, if you wait till your next meeting, keep waiting. To me, it's up to you guys. You're the committee, but it needs to be a concentrated effort. Like, sit down, grind it out page by page until all right, because the committee's going to have to have a consent to put forth some document to to have the public hearing on. And until you guys come up with that, all this discussion is mute to some degree. So you're going to have, and then once you iron all your stuff out, submit a document, then we can go with the hearing process and go from there. But, you know, this is just a draft. I mean, it's got a lot of good stuff in it. Some of it might need to be tweaked for what you guys want, but you need to come to have a meeting and sit down and bang it out. And doing it in the 15 minutes or a half hour at your zoning committee meeting probably isn't gonna, unless you
Take a whole meeting.
unless you make sure that when you meet the next time, this is gonna get done front, first page to the end.
I want
Everybody have their information.
I want the ordinance done next month. So we'll have to, at least a proposal on our table that we
So
can
whatever
possibly
whatever
approve
it
and send it
takes
forward.
for you to
send it
decide
zoning
how
board.
that gets done, whether you have a special meeting or whatever.
We can do that.
You decide, and we'll hammer it out, and because until in my, where I look at it, until there's an ordinance in place, I do not want to have any discussion with any solar companies because we have no guidance, except basically it'd be conditional use on an A1 zoning with no guidance or no restrictions. And I just don't think that's the way to proceed if you're actually going to do an ordinance anyway. So,
Here's
add it.
Winnebago's solar farm. Solar panels shall be erected no less than 50 feet from any property line. All other structures meet their zoning yard requirements. The borders of the property shall be secured with a fence at least 6 feet high. On-site power lines shall be placed underground to the maximum extent possible. That is their solar ordinance.
If that's what you want to do, that's fine.
I mean, just to show you, and the Department of Energy group, they're trying to help communities become solar friendly. So I've been doing an email tag, I got the guy's phone number, send them what we have, but their intent is to help us develop one that will make it easy for solar companies. But the feeling that I've been having from the different committee members is we don't want it. But I need, you know, I'm just going to be blunt, if the members of the committee have no interest in reading the proposal or commenting, just say so to me privately, and I'll work with those that want to.
We don't want to chase them away.
I know.
We want to make it viable for them to come here.
Yeah, where did you get the idea we don't want them?
Not everyone. Just from interaction on reading my proposal, giving me feedback. There's only been a few people that actually read it and gave me feedback. So that's just
If you want,
me being blunt.
here's the timeline. If you wait till the next zoning committee meeting, which is the first week of August, then you cannot have a hearing until the end of September, because you'll be past the time period to have the legal notice put in the paper for the zoning board of appeals for the end of August. It's already scheduled. If you want to hash something out in later this month, I already have a zoning board of appeals scheduled for the end of August, so you can, you know, if I have everything set, the ordinance signed off on and agreed to, and boom, we can have a hearing on it at the end of August and legal notice put in the paper the first week of August. But if you don't, and that's the timeline, because the 15 days really puts a crunch when you're talking committee meetings on a certain date. That's where you get your 2 or 3 or 4 month lag delay. And so that's your timeline. If you wait to hammer it out in August, do your committee meeting in August, then the earliest you can take it to the zoning board of appeals is the end of September. And if there is no major changes, in the case scenario, the county board could not, and the committee and the county board couldn't approve it till October. And that's if you get it, that's, you know, now if you get it, have a special meeting and hammer it out end of August, then you can have it in place in September. If there is no public outcry or, you know, any public, you know, and you always have that chance, because it'll be a public hearing setting for all 3 meetings, zoning board of appeals, committee, and full board. And you remember the comments that went around on the wind farms. So it's up to you guys.
I, for one, would like to see a special meeting.
Yeah.
Get this done this month, so we can get it out, so we can take advantage of the ZBA already meeting. So, it's up to the committee when they would like to do that, but we can,
Should we formally put a moratorium on them until we can finish it?
I don't think it'd be a bad idea, just so the county can get our ducks in a row.
Yeah.
We know where we're at, just a temporary one.
I would move that we put a moratorium on any development of our proposal of a wind farm until we get our ordinance in place.
I'll second that.
Motion in a second. One moment. This is, okay, could you read that back, please?
No, because I'll need you to restate that. please.
Restate it, Marvin.
I would move that we put a moratorium on further, what should I say, applications for solar farms until we get our ordinance in place.
On further applications until we get our...
Or should I say approval of applications?
If it'll help you, we can meet in the evenings too. I mean, it's up to you.
One thing at a time. Motion on the floor. Figure out the language you want in it. Up to the committee, basically, and or you're the one making the motion on how you want it stated. But I do want to stress that it would be a temporary moratorium. This isn't permanent. This is only until we get
it together.
our ordinance in place. So what would that be? It'd be, if it made the August, so it'd be ready to go by September, the September County Board meeting, correct?
If there's no major
There's no
public
major
outcry.
problems. That would be
Again.
the quickest we could get it done.
I mean, obviously, your outcry would be against them.
Yeah.
And I mean, you had a for and against with solar and wind towers, but I don't know how the public's going to react to this.
You have to put it in the paper?
It has to be in every paper in the county.
And that's what takes so much time, is the 15-day publication notices, and it's not going to be a quick turnaround. It would be September. At the very, very earliest would be the quickest we would get it in place would be September.
County board meeting in September.
John?
When the moratorium was in effect on the wind farms, the motion always had an expiration date to it. In other words, in this case, if the motion included an expiration date of, let's say, September 30th, and at that time drew near, if it was determined that the moratorium needed to be extended, further motions were made. And when you go back through the history of the minutes of the board meetings, you'll see where there was a whole series of motions made to extend that moratorium necessary because the work had not been completed on getting the ordinance changes and so forth adopted. So I would suggest that you have a moratorium with an expiration date rather than saying it's temporary.
Okay.
That way you've got a time frame that you're looking at, and when you see that you're not going to meet that time frame, then you can extend it for another month or 2 months or whatever would be appropriate.
So Bob, what would be
Well,
reasonable-
obviously, if you guys are committed to getting me a draft by the end of July, then you meet in August, and obviously you won't know until the end of August what kind of public inputs are going to be either pro or con. Then you do it at August, then it goes to zoning committee in September, and then full board second Tuesday of September. That's best case scenario. So if you do it, if you can pull it off within that time frame, then you make the expiration date, whatever the date of the county board meeting is in September. But like John said, if you're not going to get it, say there's a huge public outcry in August, then when you meet and then we have to have more hearings. If you have then in the August committee meeting, you can propose to extend it for another 90 days or whatever. Just move it down the road, but keep putting a deadline. I like what John's saying. Put a deadline on it so you got a target. If you want it in place, we want one in place. That's what I'm gathering from the consensus here. You want one in place. I want one in place personally, just so I have guidance on how to, when I get phone calls from solar companies, I want to have something I can tell them specifically, here's what it is, here's a copy of it, read it, you comply, then they still have to go through the approval process. They still have to make their proposal to the zoning board of appeals. It's the same process for them. And obviously, but they have guidance for what they want to do if they want to apply for any kind of, so.
And yeah, I would agree. I'd like to see a expiration date. I agree. I think the county board meeting for September would be a good one.
September 12th.
September 12th. For an expiration date of September 12th.
Yeah, temporary.
But you four and who else is on, is Dan, the other member?
Yeah.
Have to be committed to meet this month and get something hammered out by the end of July.
Right.
And if you're not, then don't put that date on there, because you'll never get it done.
We can get it
I
done.
sent you Kankakee counties, because they changed.
I got a copy of it.
Yeah, because it's 5 acres is the minimum size. And we're, so.
All right, well, we'll get back to that in a
Yeah.
second. We've got a motion on the floor with a second.
So,
It's convoluted at this point.
yes. Do you want to
Clarify, please, Margaret.
clarify, please?
I move that we place a temporary moratorium on the application for solar farms to expire September 12th.
Motion, the second, clarified. Is there any further discussion? Okay, I have one thing I'd like to add. This goes to Wendy and everybody else paying attention. This is a temporary moratorium. Iroquois County does not want to rush into anything and get caught in a predicament like we were with the wind towers, so we want to make sure we do this right. And the whole point of this is to do this correctly for the county and at the same time be fair and encourage solar production in Iroquois County. We want to make sure we do this right. So, that being said, no further input. Call the roll, please. Ernie seconded it.
Big Matt?
Yes.
Curtis?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes. Okay.
I may decide on a date.
Date for a meeting. What's everybody's schedule looks like? If we can do, I would prefer a nighttime meeting.
I will be out of town from the 15th through, I'll be back the morning of the 20th.
Okay.
So,
I'm open anytime.
Let's shoot, see, PMP would that'd be the 27th, I think. Anyway, irrelevant. Let's shoot for any time after the 20th then. So, 15th, what is today? Today is the 7th. We could even do next week if anybody has anything available next week. We can sit down and hammer this out. Let's get it done. I would prefer to do it next week to where if we needed a second meeting, we could do that. So, start shouting out dates for next week. Bob?
I'm, as of the 14th, next Friday, I am gone until the fair's over, but I don't have to be here for you guys
Yeah.
to do your ordinance. I don't have to be here.
I mean,
I don't, it's not my decision.
would evening be better for everyone? Or more, because I think
I would
Ernie
prefer-
said evening, but
I would prefer evening,
Yeah.
and we could get some put on it as well.
Evening's fine.
Evening's fine. Is it, I mean, if nobody really has a problem
Wednesday
with
the
it.
12th, 6 o'clock
Suits me.
or 6:30. I mean, I work till 5 up in Mantino, but I mean, I can get
That
here
sounds-
at 6.
sounds good to
Let's
me.
go- Let's go for 6.
Okay.
Wednesday, the
Wednesday
12th,
the 12th.
at 6.
Yeah.
And then Dan, I just keep Jim in the loop. I suggest you let him know to make sure we're doing the process
Yeah,
correctly.
in fact, I'm going to request if he has the availability, if he wants to come and have any input, he'd be more welcome. So we're going to invite all the input we can get, so.
I will have a cleaned up, I'll have a copy of this, and then this way we can start penciling out, and we'll photocopy Kankakee,
Yeah, we
and
can
I
have
will,
that, and we'll distribute it.
make a copy of Winnebago's because that's really loose. We just have to decide.
I think this will be pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
As far as going back to your acreage requirement, I would say on the side of, as far as a minimum acreage, I don't know if I would even put a minimum acreage in and maybe just shoot
That's
straight for
to
a
talk
maximum.
about.
Yeah,
And the other thing to think about
maximum
is, do we want to include the other zoning districts, the business or the industrial?
Yeah.
So that's something to chew
That's
on.
a great idea. So, but
To bring back to life.
But we're here, so we can, it's on the agenda, so let's have a little
Yeah.
discussion on it now.
That'll work.
You got anything there for cleanup?
Yeah, the decommissioning.
They have to post a bond?
Yeah. Might have an extra in my box I can pass out.
And just to be clear,
Yeah.
evaluation is not a part of the ordinance.
No.
It's part of the assessment process, so that should not even be part of the discussion of what you guys are doing. So I have to determine that on the other end of it. And that'll be discussion with colleagues of mine that have them, how they do it. So until there's a state law that says how they do it.
Are they going down in the ground, or, I mean, small foundation or something, but
Yeah,
they're
most
not
of
going
the,
any depth, right?
no, whatever is required to support the panel. So
Like a
cross
house-
line.
Like a house.
30 feet seems to be the normal height solar, or with, add in. I mean, I don't know who, is that who you,
Yeah, he'll be speaking.
Okay.
And in fact, if
Yeah.
there's no more action, I don't know what it would hurt.
no, yeah, participate.
Yeah.
So,
If the committee doesn't have any objections, we can just let him speak now. If
Yeah.
we're discussing solar.
if I get your card with an email, I can send you a copy of the draft
You wanna
and rip it
introduce
apart.
Sure. So, I'm Mark Wilkerson, and I've been in the solar industry since 1983. Sold my first photovoltaic panel back then. So this August will be 34 years. I've lived in northern Ford County since 1993. And I like to say I have the same zip code as Capri, but I live in Stella. And I came there after all the rich stories, I guess, were made of our history there. But 2 Fridays before last Christmas, my job was eliminated at the company I was working at, and so since then I've started my own company. And I'm taking and applying that 33 years of experience, and all of a sudden this year I've become real popular being here in Illinois, and I've been on these calls all year with probably 150 out-of-state companies interested in the state and all that. And to tell you the truth, I've never been on this side of the business. I've always sold equipment. I could talk for days on photovoltaic technology, but finding land is a whole new thing for me. But I have a client now who has, asked me to do that. So I do wear that hat. But I just wanted to make myself available in terms of the technology. If you have any questions on, why is it 5 to 7 acres and what's fixed versus tracking and all that kind of stuff, I could talk about for a long time. So I'll give you my card. And I've met with Delbert up at Kankakee and forwarded the zoning they're looking at up there. And basically, I think he told me he just used the wind zoning and changed it a little bit. So I'm available. Email me. Ask me questions now, and I'd be happy to help. But yet, do realize I do represent one company. And I've seen the mistakes in other states where there are people out there right now claiming they have a 600 megawatt pipeline in Illinois. And what I wanted to say a while ago when I raised my hand, that's really not possible because the Illinois Power Agency doesn't make a decision which would allow somebody to have a pipeline until the last day of September 29, I think. So I've been in the IPA meetings, following all that, and nobody can really, you can do a lease option, and there are lease options being signed right now, but anything goes sideways at any point in the way, and they can back out and say, well, that doesn't work for us, and the numbers don't work. So I would just ask you to consider that anything you do that adds cost to the project makes the lease prices to the farmer or whoever go down. So if the costs go up, the benefits to the local community go down. And I don't know, any questions? I'd be happy to.
What's a lot of what I created came from Kankakee County, and then our wind farm and stuff. What's your thoughts of their ordinance as far as being friendly to encourage solar, but yet protection for decommissioning and making sure that...
Yeah, the company that I represent was with me when we met with Delbert, and they were very happy with the rules. The one part, they were a little bit unhappy with the $5,000, I think, what is that, an
Application fee.
And that came right from the wind, apparently.
Yeah.
So when you're doing a $5,000 application for a 100 megawatt wind farm, that's one thing, but for a 1 megawatt solar farm, it's a little different. Knowing that could be totally at risk. I mean, you could say no and they lose their money. So I would just ask, and Delbert's reconsidering that number as well.
So stuff to think about. And
Yeah.
what's the typical, what seems to be the trend as far as what I've been seeing is it seems to be the what Prairie Power called utility scale
Yeah.
size seems to be the 3 to 8 acre versus the large farm. I mean, what do you think the trend is for Illinois?
You know, if you ask different people, the same thing. Like
Yeah.
community solar is going to be a big part of the Illinois program.
Yeah.
But if you ask 10 different people what community solar is, you will get 15 different answers. you
Yeah,
know?
I've been on the Illinois Solar Now website
Yep.
and the different Grow Solar Illinois, and there's.
So it used to be a solar utility scale meant a megawatt or bigger.
Mhm.
That's small change these days. Utility scale generally means 20 to 50 to 100 megawatts. And the community scale solar is 2 megawatts or less. It's the same solar panels, it's just bigger or smaller. Now, why they started a megawatt is just the economy of scale. It's kind of like, and I just thought of this driving over here today, it's like you wouldn't put a crop of corn on several different smaller plots. It just wouldn't make sense. It's the economy of scale of doing at least a megawatt. And that's why 5 acres should probably be your minimum. But economics will
Newton.
cause your minimum. I mean, if it's too small, it won't get done.
Yeah, and Newton County, I think, is like 3.5.
Yeah. So, I mean, economics will be the ultimate driver. If it doesn't make sense, it won't get done.
Yeah.
And that's the thinking behind not having a minimum acreage requirement is if it's not economically viable.
Right.
Nobody's going to pull a half acre out of production to put.
At the
2
same
panels.
time, the article that, how I found your name, talked about a minimum of 5 acres. And like Tim Wilhelm of KCC pointed out, God, that could power the whole college. That's pretty large.
Mhm.
So, and that would pretty much eliminate the possibility of doing community solar. And community solar has a lot of benefits. For folks that want solar but can't put it on their property for whatever reason, they could buy a subscription to a community solar farm. So, it'd be good not to make it hard for community solar to happen.
We don't want to make it difficult.
Yeah, I put the 75 in just based on our normal zoning ordinance that if you want to do anything, you need to be a landowner. So, and that's how the 75 acres got in there because of the.
But at the same time, you're saying 5 acres for the minimum size of the actual
Well,
farm.
I'm fine for the smaller part.
Okay.
But I just went off of the intent of our current zoning. I mean, if you want to build a house, on rural land,
Right.
you need to own 75 acres for A1 or the 35 for A2.
Okay.
So I went with basically what the intent of the zoning ordinance is. We don't want you building, and keep it that way.
Okay. Well,
But I'm for do it.
I would also like to not see a restriction of minimum because the way technology is increasing with the solar market, in 10 years, 2 acres might be,
that might be the
that might be, that,
Yeah.
that might be 5, the equivalent of 1 or 2 megawatts. So
Because it all goes through ZBA anyway,
Yeah.
because it's a conditional.
I would definitely like to not see a minimum acreage required on that because you don't know what the future's going to hold. And I think Iroquois County's biggest problem in our history is not looking to the future. We've spent too much time looking behind us.
I just see it as an opportunity to keep some of our kids here too, because the technology, if we can get more, those are the jobs they go after.
But I think Key was telling us it was only for ag.
Yes, they are A1 only.
But I want you to keep in mind,
I want to expand it.
the state of, and I'm talking cities and counties, the state of our financial situation in this state right now, if there's unused land and it's not good for anything else, and you can put a solar farm on it,
Mhm.
that's $1,000 an acre for 20 years.
That's what Hoosier Energy's been targeting, the former lots,
Yeah.
and basically bringing them back to life so that they're not an eyesore.
And I jumped up to talk to the attorney for that, because somebody's already told me about that Milford property that's unused. That could be an ideal solar farm.
Yeah.
You don't have to touch anything under that slab or, upset the soil at all. So we don't want to take like good farmland. We want to take farmland that maybe people are getting paid, that $100 per acre to not grow stuff on. Or the land that just won't grow anything or whatever, like you're saying, brownfield, the possibly the garbage areas. But yeah, we don't want to go after a prime farmland.
Any further questions?
Thank you for...
Feel free to write me.
Yeah,
I mean,
I will. I'll send you, shoot you an email. I'll shoot you just a draft copy so that, feel free to red ink it. It was composed just to get this discussion going.
You're more than welcome to attend our next meeting. It would be on the 12th at 6 p.m. if you're available. That's the one where it'll be solely for discussing solar ordinance. Hopefully we'll get some other board members here as well if you can have a lot more
I will be having the company that's hired me to find land with me that day
Yeah,
and the
that'd
next
be great.
day, so I don't know if we'll be able to get, we'll be down here.
Yeah, it'll be in this room. Yep. That'd be great. If they wanted to do it, to attend, that'd be great.
But if you stick with something like KTT's come up with, there's really not going to be a whole lot of changes. We've got some suggestions, but it's
The
pretty
application
good.
fee is the big one too.
Yeah.
So.
We want to make it fair.
Keep in mind the developer has to pay ComEd or Ameren interconnection halfway the fee as well, and that could be lost as well. There's a lot of risk up front. And the fees that are paid to the landowner up front can be lost as well. So it's not all profit, but...
Is there some companies better than other companies?
Better? Yeah.
Or are they all the same?
I sent Dan something that happened in New York just yesterday. I got notice. One of the companies touting the most pipeline here has gotten themselves in such trouble in other states. We thought they'd cleaned their act up by the time they got here. Well, they just got kicked down to 60% of their projects. Now, what happens to the person who signed the lease option with that guy? All of a sudden, that lease option is either worth less or nothing at all, and that project doesn't get built because other projects that were more real took their position in the queue. So it's all about due diligence. Just do the research, do the due diligence, and those kinds of facts will come to light, I think.
All right. Any further questions? Thank you.
Sure. You want me to go?
No, you can stick around.
Okay.
If you enjoy boring things.
No, I've enjoyed this.
No, leave right now.
So we can talk about you.
Fine.
All right.
I live in Stell. I'm used to it.
They haven't come got you yet, the aliens, no?
They haven't introduced me to them yet.
Okay, moving on. Review the claims. Has everybody had a chance to look at the claims? I don't think
Yes.
most have not passed them out unless they have them on their papers as well.
That's just the only
Is there a motion to approve the current claims presented?
second.
Is there a motion?
Ernie and...
Oh, Ernie, okay, I didn't hear. Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Sticknot?
Yes.
Curtis?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes. Thank you. Any old business come before the committee? None. Any new business come before the committee? Is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Ernie Curtis. Is there a second?
Yep.
Chad McGinnis. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Meeting is